And I'm in the cabin of the Renault Kiger. Now, we're comparing this car today with the Maruti Suzuki Fronx, and I have to say that in terms of seating position, you sit up slightly higher than you do in the Fronx, so you get a better view of the road ahead, and you get a better sense of what an SUV should be like and can be like. So that's one advantage that this car has. The other advantage is that in terms of the instrumentation, it is a completely digital dials, a completely digital cluster, so it looks a little more sporty, looks a little more dynamic when you compare it with the one on the Fronx, because that's exactly the same as the Baleno. And I think Maruti should have done something different with the instrumentation, at least to give it a slightly different personality on the interiors. The touchscreen, well, both these cars are more or less the same. Sound quality of the stereo is more or less the same. Neither Maruti nor Renault makes the best sound systems, so both of them are the same. In terms of equipment, other than that, they're identical, pretty much the same, because you get cruise control, wireless charger, automatic climate control, Apple CarPlay and Auto and stuff like that is available on this car as well as you get on the Suzuki Fronx. The big advantage this car has, though, in terms of equipment, is the fact that you get different driving modes: eco, normal and sport. And at this price point, it's something unheard of that you get different driving modes, and all these modes, all these three modes, actually do alter the personality of this car. It really does work very well, and the car's personality definitely is enhanced in those different modes. So that's something which is unique to this car. What's also slightly better on this car is overall practicality in spaces to keep your odds and ends. Door bins are nice and large to keep those big bottles. You can also place smaller bottles over here because there's a huge tray, and of course the armrest also, there's a huge tray over here, and you get a couple of glove boxes, not one but two glove boxes, one on top and one at the bottom. So that's one area as well where the Renault Kiger has the advantage. So who wins the battle of the front seat? Well, I think the advantage is definitely with the Kiger, especially when you consider different driving modes, completely digital dials, and the higher seating posture, which gives you a proper SUV kind of look and feel. Well, gentlemen, inside the cabin of the all-new Fronx. I'm sure you've already seen this cabin and these interiors before in a lot of videos, because this car has been showcased for quite a lot since the Auto Expo. But again, I'll give you a revision course. How is it different to the Baleno? Well, you of course get a different color scheme over here. You get this very dark brown, or you can call it burgundy, whichever color you want to call it. That's the big difference. But apart from that, it's exactly the same scheme of things as you get on the Baleno, and you get the exact same features as well. So you get the same cruise control, same HUD, same bird's eye view camera, ESP, and of course automatic headlamps there as well. And in the base version gets this climate control feature. So those are nice things. Now the positives, there are quite a lot of positives. Seat comfort is generally very good on this car, and Maruti Suzuki seems to really make very nice seats. The cushioning, the padding, support for your lower back, these bolsters, everything adds up. And of course you also get this small box away where you can keep these small water bottles, and just about they fit over there, and you can easily lock it up. And of course the top bins are large enough to house those big 1 liter bottles. Now there are a couple of areas where I think Maruti Suzuki should have changed a few things. The side mirrors in particular are still very small. They're just the ones on the Baleno. So that's a feedback that I'll have to give them, that the side mirrors could have been changed. That's one thing. Second thing is that they should have given you cool front seats, because this is going to compete in a segment where rivals like the Nexon, the Kia Sonet are offering you cool front seats. So they should have offered you cool front seats. And the switch gear over here, the buttons over here for the power windows, they've been around for the last 2 decades, I think. Since the Swift came out in 2005, these power window buttons haven't been changed. So I think they should have changed this as well to just give you a slightly different feeling compared to the hatchback version, because this is the SUV and this is going to sell against very well established rivals. So I think these are few changes, because they've done a great job. Maruti Suzuki has done a great job with the looks on the outside. I think these small changes on the inside would have really helped and given a big boost to the overall feel as well as the ambience of the cabin. But anyways, they've not done that. We can't really blame them, because they also are the masters of cost cutting. Well, I'm sure by now all of you are aware that Woodmore are the online expert when it comes to spare parts. And the best point is that they have the spare parts for all vehicles available in India. So even if your car is out of production now, maybe you have a large generation model, even then they have the spare part available. They have the entire catalog. And the best point is that they have the same spare part from a host of different component makers, which gives you great flexibility in the pricing overall. Well, so now I'm in the back seat of the Kiger, and if you compare this car in terms of the space, space is quite good at the back. Headroom is much better than it is in the Fronx. So if you are someone who's about 6'1", 6'2", you'll have better headroom over here, definitely. And lithium also is quite generous. You get a 12 volt charging point. You don't get any USBs like you do on that car, but that's quite okay, because you can easily neglect it. There is of course an armrest here which has a couple of beverage holders and a big tray where you can keep your cell phone, etc., and wallet. So I think overall the battle of the backseat has to be given to the Kiger because it has this little armrest. The backseat handle is good, space is quite good, and the floorboard is completely flat. So whoever is sitting here can easily stretch his feet, and the middle person also has plenty of place to stretch his feet. Well, so if you're someone who always enjoys sitting in the back seat, then this is a better car. What you also like is that the cabin feels a lot more airier. Even though it's a dark cabin, it surprisingly feels a little more airier. It could probably be because the height of the roof is taller than it is on the Fronx. It could be because of that reason. But yes, this car's cabin feels a little more brighter and airier than the Fronx's cabin. So overall, the advantage in terms of the space as well as comfort is definitely with the Renault Kiger. Well, so here I'm now in the back seat of the new Maruti Suzuki Fronx, and this is a very comfortable car. So you get plenty of place over here. 3 occupants can easily sit because it's quite nice and wide, and there's genuinely good seat comfort because the seat cushioning is quite good. So no issues whatsoever in that department. But what you will like to have had in this car is the fact that you would have really preferred to have a central armrest over here because this car competes with the likes of the Nexon, the Sonnet, as well as its own sibling, the Brezza. So all those cars have an armrest. That would have really been a big positive, but I think you have to still manage to live without it because you can appreciate the space that Maruti Suzuki has offered. You get a USB, old school, and USB Type C, small place over here to keep your cell phone, and of course the obligatory AC vents at the back, and the windows also are nice and large, so you definitely get a sense of airiness inside this cabin. And today I'm driving the Booster Jet. Yes, I'm driving the Booster Jet, which a lot of people are keen to know how it performs because we've already seen the performance of the 1.2 on the Baleno. So this one is a new engine. I mean, it's been there on the Baleno RS, but this one feels completely different to that engine because it's refined. It's very quiet, and even when you drive it hard, it doesn't vibrate, it doesn't trouble you inside. So Maruti engineers done a fantastic job with the packaging of this engine and bolting it on to this car. It really does feel very good and supremely refined. What you'll also like about the car is the fact that when you're driving it up the hills, you know, like we have been driving it around today within the city limits and on tight and twisty Goa roads, even then this car feels quite good and very agile. The suspension setup definitely works very well on this car, and yes, you might say that how is it different to the Baleno? There's a big difference. The suspension on this car has been stiffened up quite a bit. The suspension components are different, so that also makes a big difference because remember this car is heavier than the Baleno by about 75 kilos. So definitely that stiffened up suspension works in its favor, especially if you're a highway person. If you're driving on the highway, you're doing speeds in excess of 100 kph, you'll definitely enjoy the overall driving experience of this car. On the highway, it feels very stable, it feels very reassuring, and definitely offers you a sense of confidence which you won't really get on some other cars at this price point if you go over 100 kph. What you'll also like is the fact that the gearbox, the manual version, works very well. It's typical Maruti Suzuki gearbox. The throws are very short, the clutch action is nice and light, and that combined with the steering wheel is also something quite good. Now the steering wheel is much different to the one on the Baleno, and the reason for that of course is that this steering wheel has a lot more weight in it. Yes, it feels a lot more weightier, and definitely that's something which a lot of people will appreciate because this car just feels a lot more confidence inspiring, especially when you're pushing around bends and corners because it does have very good dynamics. And of course, as I said, because the suspension has been stiffened up, if you push into corners, there's very limited body roll. It's always under control. And unlike the Baleno, which tends to dive around a bit when you really brake hard and push in corners, this one feels much more agile and definitely feels a lot more sure-footed than the Baleno. So yes, we shouldn't really compare with the Baleno because it's a different car. Only the platform is the same, but since you know it's the same platform, then there are going to be some comparisons being made with that very successful car. What you'll also like is the fact that, as I said, the engine doesn't really make a noise. Yes, it isn't as responsive in the lower end of its power band because it's turbo. So around 1400, 1500 RPM, it feels a little lethargic and a little lackluster in terms of performance. But once you cross that RPM figure, once you go to about 1500 RPM, this engine becomes really very responsive. The part delivery is very crispy, and once you rev it up all the way up to 4,500, 5,000 RPM, it just delivers very good power. And even though the red line is 6,000, I will not take it all the way to 6,000, because then it becomes a little fuzzy. But normally, people don't drive like that. People drive within 2,000 to 3,500 RPM mostly. And in those RPM figures in that bracket, it really does offer you very punchy performance. Well, so here I am driving the Renault Kiger now, and in today's comparison, we're going to compare this car with the Suzuki Fronx. Now we're comparing the 1 liter turbocharged version of this car with the 1 liter turbo version of that car. So on terms of paper specs, both these cars are pretty similar in terms of the capacity and power output, but the gearbox, the automatic gearbox on both these cars are very different. This one uses CVT technology, continuous variable transmission. That one uses 6-speed torque converter, and I have to say that surprisingly, it's the CVT which feels a little more lively to drive compared to the torque converter. Now it could be about the tuning, how both these manufacturers have tuned their cars, but this one definitely feels livelier, especially if you put it in sport mode. Yes, if you put it in sport mode, this car just takes off. It's very responsive at the throttle. The gearboxes are really, very aggressive, and of course the automatic, even though it's a CVT, even in sport mode, then it feels nice and aggressive and makes this car feel very peppy indeed. In the normal mode also, it's quite okay, but I think that in terms of the pure driving pleasure, none of these cars can be truly called a pure driver's car, and none of these cars really are driver's cars. But still, I think this one, some areas has an advantage, like the ride comfort, especially at faster speeds. I think that the Kiger feels a little more planted at faster speeds and gives you a better sense of confidence and a better sense of stability than you do get on the Fronx. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. Steering wheel output, well, this car's steering wheel is a little heavier. It definitely feels a little stiffer. So people who drive on the highway will get a better sense of confidence. But people who drive primarily in the city will probably prefer the steering wheel of the Baleno rather the Fronx, because it's lighter, so it takes less effort, and definitely that's one area where that car has the advantage. But of course, this car doesn't get any paddle shifters because it doesn't have proper torque control like the Fronx does. So that's something where you'll miss out on. I think since Renault's given this car so much, they could have even given paddle shifters to give it slightly better feel. So that's one advantage where the Fronx is ahead. But then again, I think as a package, I think Renault's done a very good job with the packaging of the Kiger. What do you think of these two cars? Let me know. In terms of refinement, well, both these cars, because they're 3-cylinder, they're refined till you don't rev them up till 4,000. Once you cross 3,500, 4,000 RPM, both of them become quite loud. There's no two ways about it. Both of them do become loud. So there's no getting away from that. But yes, as I said, it's difficult to choose which one is the advantage in outright refinement. That's for sure. Now we'll stop both these cars and give you a definitive summary report with the score sheets, and then you can decide which one you should put your money on.